So let's get going with today's session. Today we have three great presenters from RGU's Employability Hub, Paul Matthews, Rachel Pugh and Will Ritchie. The team are going to share some insights into how to ensure you can retain key talent and also offer opportunities for new recruits in which I'm sure you'll agree are uniquely challenging times. So I'll now hand over to Paul to get us kicked off. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome, and thank you for everybody joining us this afternoon. What we'll do, we'll go over how we are looking at the current situation. We've only got about an hour or so in total, so our contact details will be at the end of the presentation. And I would encourage anybody, if you have any questions, obviously to ask them during the session, but if we don't have time at the end, as I say, you can contact any of us directly. The first thing I'd like to highlight, a bit of sort of unashamed advertising for the success of the university. But on a sort of serious note, it is quite important, because if you look at the success that we have at Robert Gordon University, a lot of it is because we really work closely with employers at all levels. So I think it's, if you look at our sort of success factors, graduate employability is really high. We're one of the best performing universities in the UK, not only Scotland, and our level of industry engagement, again, is something that we work really hard at. So events like this hopefully can foster that even more. And certainly at this point in time, I think it's something that we really need to concentrate on. If we could move to the next slide. I mentioned, obviously, we're proud of our employability, and just to give you some sort of faces to go with names there. My remit now, I include alumni. Some of you on this call may indeed be alumni. Many years ago, as you can tell by my white and lack of hair, I've actually got 2 degrees from RGU. And I think it's important that although we're looking at a lot of the focus is on our current graduates, I would stress that anybody who is alumni of RGU, everything that we'll be going through today is equally pertinent. So a lot of the services and a lot of what we offer, our current alumni can use. I would also say to anybody on the webinar, even if you aren't alumni of RGU, your graduating university would hopefully be doing something similar. So I think at times like this, it is important to have those connections and to reinforce those from the university that you graduated from. If we look at the setup of the Employability Hub, I mentioned alumni there, but obviously we have careers, and after my intro, we'll be passing to Will, who will give a bit more detail, a bit more in-depth analysis of how we actually support our graduates. Obviously, while they're at university, and we may touch on what we're doing post-graduation as well. And again, we'll then move to Rachel, who almost single-handedly leads the employer engagement drive. And that, again, is something that we really have focused on, I would say, particularly over the last sort of 2.5 years. And it's something that we're very conscious that we do work as a partnership with our employers. And a lot of the things that you'll see today, they aren't just sort of my ideas or Will's ideas or Rachel's. There is a direct result of feedback both across the university and indeed across a variety of industry sectors. Other things you'll see there, placements and study abroad. I'm not going to go into them in depth at the moment, but I think if we're looking at students and we're looking at their employability, things like placements, study abroad, internships, etc., they really do make a difference. And indeed, some of you may have actually experienced that yourself, either as a student or indeed as an employer offering, say, a placement position. If we could move to the next slide, please. I'm not going to dwell on this because probably like most of you, I've been on a number of webinars over the last 7-8 months, but I think it is worth reinforcing a few points. Obviously, COVID-19 is the sort of driver as to why we're now in this sort of virtual world, but it's almost, dare I say, a perfect storm, because looming at the end of this year imminently is Brexit. And again, it's quite specific to the Northeast and indeed some of the global markets, but the oil price crash, if you put those into the mix, I think the Northeast of Scotland in particular has a big hit. I mean, personally, my experience is predominantly oil and gas. I had 20 years in it. and I experienced quite a few highs and lows. The worst was 2014, when at that point we did freeze graduate recruitment, but that pales into insignificance compared to the challenges that all employers currently face. Again, if you look at the predictions, again, it's a guesstimate, but they're saying it could easily be 4 million next year. To put that into context, and I think it's important when you look at the global market, I read an article yesterday, and if you look at Latin America and the Caribbean, just to pick that area, there's currently 34 million jobs have been lost. Now, that's a stunning statistic, but 34 million jobs. Now, you then try and sort of transition that across the whole of the globe. You can see how damaging this is. And from an employer's perspective, it's a really, really difficult scenario. What is unequivocal, though, and don't get me wrong, everyone is affected by this, whether you're 16 or you're 60, but the biggest group or the biggest impact is on the 16 to 24-year-olds. And that's something we have to be conscious of. Also, 83% of this year's graduates feel under more pressure than before. And that's totally understandable. Because again, if you look at the stats, over 30% of graduate opportunities have been withdrawn by employers. Again, it's not a surprise. If the jobs don't exist, you can't sort of imagine them out of thin air. As a result of that, graduate salaries are taking a hit. Again, I'm not just focusing on graduates, but that's an area that we are obviously concerned with. But I am conscious that a lot of salaries across all sectors are similarly being affected. And the last point picks up to the point I made in the last slide. Placements, internships and study abroad, they are all greatly being reduced right across the UK and beyond. And I think that's quite important if we're looking at our students learning and developing their employability skills. If we move on to the next slide. With all that, that's not doom and gloom. I mean, it's not exactly the most upbeat message, but there are ways where, in fact, we have to adapt to it, and there are ways we can move forward. What I've looked at here is some of the sort of research that's being undertaken. There's a lot, there's a wealth of information on this, but I've just picked sort of three areas or three key areas for each of the topics there individually and organisationally. And this, I mean, we're looking at this initially at our graduates, but I would equally say if you're an employer role and you've got staff, this is something that equally is applicable to your staff. So what we're trying to encourage our graduates is to reframe their existing skills. What do they currently possess? What they can enhance further, but also how can they communicate those and transfer those? So that's something that we're really, really promoting at the moment. Again, what we're trying to encourage are individuals to enhance their learning. Interestingly, and it's not just unique to RGU, you may be aware that across the UK, postgraduate numbers have increased this year. Not a huge surprise, but again, when you've got an uncertain world with limited employment opportunities, maybe taking another year, enhancing your qualifications is something that's worthwhile considering. And one of the last points, which again I would emphasise, doesn't only apply to our graduates, is maximising your networks. It's something that we really sort of bang the drum with our graduates about, LinkedIn, etc. So again, within an employment framework, it is quite important that we look at that. Organisationally, I think you'll have seen, depending on what you've either been reading or the webinars you've been in, there's a big shift. I think what we'll find in my background, as well as oil and gas, most of my background was in HR. There's been a real quantum shift, I think, in contracts, or there will be a quantum shift in contracts in the coming year to 18 months. I think the idea of working from home, which in the past companies have been quite, dare I say, negative about, that has been demonstrated that it can work quite well and that productivity isn't being impacted detrimentally. I think also things like blended working, adapting job roles. By blended working, what we're looking at there is not just hours, location, etc., which, as I said, are more contractual elements. If we're looking at blended working, we're looking at the fact that maybe in the past your job had to be done face-to-face. Some jobs that will remain. More and more jobs are being able to be a balance between virtual, as we're doing today, and indeed face-to-face. And again, job roles accordingly will be adapted to reflect that. I think the last point I would highlight from an organisational perspective is, if you remember Boris Johnson's speech last week, he mentioned lifetime skills guarantee. Obviously, at RGU, we promote lifelong learning. And there's a number of national interventions that are available to employers and indeed individuals, some of which I know Rachel's going to touch on towards the end of this presentation. But again, as an employer or indeed as an individual, it's worth exploring those. Next slide, please. The last slide I'd like to focus on. One of the things I mentioned earlier is we work very, very closely with employers to identify what the real core skills are, apart from the technical and obviously the degree, knowledge and experience that students get. What are employers looking for? As I said, I was in an employer mode for most of my career and in an HR mode as well. So what we try to do is we get feedback, we develop a framework, as indeed does the higher education sector. And hopefully what we are encouraging our students to learn and sort of enhance is skills that will make them more employable. And dare I say, in the current situation, it's probably even more important. These are deemed as, and again, through the research, there's a number of skills that are coming through that employers are saying are essential in the sort of new environment that we're faced. What I would stress is a lot of these aren't new. A lot of these are not new at all. But what we're finding is that there's more emphasis on them. And I think if you look at your own experience over the last 7-8 months, things like adaptability, I'm sure, and I know myself from a university perspective, we literally went overnight from working on campus to working remotely. So again, for our employees or indeed our graduates now, it's essential that people are adaptable. And dare I say, they need to be adaptable at pace. And that's something that often doesn't come easy to people. Resilience, again, it's something that we've been promoting more and more over the last couple of years with our students. It was something that was coming back from our employer networks. And certainly resilience, I think, has been ably demonstrated over the last 6-7 months that it's something that people really need to build on. Creativity, if you look at the different ways of working, and obviously data literacy. It's amazing, and I include myself, that we're able to work this effectively now. We're able to meet, and as I say, meet with almost a global audience without the need to travel, etc. So there are some positives out of this. Leadership, for those of you who are in management roles, and include myself and both my team who are joining us today, managing remotely and leading remotely is quite a challenge. It's a different set of skill sets. Leadership itself's a big enough challenge anyway, but when you put that into remote context, it brings with it different challenges. And last but not least is emotional intelligence. I think what has become really apparent is words like empathy. Again, from an HR perspective, it was something that I was always keen to get across to graduates when I recruited them. But I think in the current environment, the pressures that people are under, the difficulty, the uncertainty, and also the demands upon mental health, I think emotional intelligence is something that, again, I think we'll need to focus on. It will grow in the coming months. What I'm going to do now is to pass to Will, and what he will go through is how we're actually taking some of those sort of high-level issues that I've identified and how we're actually implementing those in an operational context. Over to you, Will.
Thank you. Next slide, please. As Paul introduced me, my name is Will Ritchie, and I lead on the careers team here at the university. Before I start on my sort of like 10 minutes of discussion with yourselves, I just want to reflect back on what Paul was saying around the challenges our students and our recent graduates are facing in the marketplace at the moment with the impact of COVID, the impact that's had on the wider economics that's going on there. And I think as well, certainly picking up on Paul's last slide, the changing requirements, the changing skill sets that employers are focusing in on. And I would equate that to the rise and the acceleration of the fourth industrial revolution as well, where the world of work is going to be constantly changing. The requirements of employers are going to be updated. As Paul said, a lot of the skills that he talked about in his last slide, they're not new, but employers are increasingly putting more focus in on those skills. The intensity of those skills are becoming more important. And we as a university have to make sure that our students and recent graduates are aware of those and are up for the challenge of delivering against those kind of new skills and ideas. So if we can have my first slide, please. Okay, so what really is careers advice and guidance? So what we're really about is actually making making our students much more aware of their own employability, to help them understand their employability, celebrate where they have strengths, but also help them identify where they have potential weaknesses or development points, and how they can actually move forward and take action and take steps to actually plug those kind of gaps to make them the type of best fit employees that you can recruit from our institution. There are really two sides to that. The first side of that is about positive self-awareness, helping our students become much more aware of who they are, what they've got to offer the world of work, what they want to offer the world of work. And that is about being more reflective on their education, their wider life experiences, work experiences, help them identify and map out what their strengths are, help them actually look to say, well, if these are the skills employers are looking for, what experiences have you got from a range of different examples in your life that helps you map those skills and evidence those skills to employers, that you actually are the person who can deliver against that job description, that person's specification. But it's also about thinking about their motivations for work, their personality, their preferences, making them fit for purpose, making them effective in the workplace so that they can be productive and make a contribution as quickly as they can when they're in the workplace. The other side of that is looking at how the market is changing in terms of opportunity and developing market awareness. And how does that relate to the options and ideas that they're considering? The world of work changes so constantly that perhaps at the start of their degree programme, they were thinking of this. At the end of their degree programme, the type of opportunity they thought they were going to be able to do at the beginning of it no longer exists. But there's a whole raft of new opportunities, new ideas that they can go forward with. So how is the market changing and growing? How aware are they of the different kind of things that they can go on and do? With the market reshaping, it's about helping them rise to that challenge, to make them not just fit into the workplace and have the skills to fit into the workplace as it stands at the moment and how that's changed, but also in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, how is the market shaped again, and have they developed themselves to take advantage of that new market as it grows around them? And indeed, they grow and develop themselves around that. Okay. And what we're doing with that connection between positive self-awareness, positive understanding of opportunity and market awareness is helping them become well-informed, realistic decision makers, and that's what Wired means in there. But it's also that link to lifelong career planners, because we're not just looking at people being successful in that first jump from university into their first graduate role. It's about them making a long-term and consistent and developed move through their career, where they're actually moving through the ranks, or gaining managerial and leadership roles. They're making more and more contribution in that kind of area. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, and how does that transcribe itself into kind of practical support for our students? Because the first slide was about the theory of what we're kind of trying to do. In terms of practical support, we're here to help them explore ideas and options, encourage their thinking around being much more flexible, much more aware of the transferability of the knowledge and the skills and the experiences that they've actually had, to explore and widen their horizons further, so that they're not compartmentalized into, oh, I studied accountancy, therefore I can only be an accountant. What are the wider kind of range of options and ideas where the skill of an accountant, the knowledge of an accountant may be equally as welcome by an employer around there? We're also here to actively support them in their opportunity search, whether that's accessing advertised opportunities, but more importantly these days, it's about helping them connect through their networks, whether that's professional bodies, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's community groups, whether that's attending business webinars, etc. And yes, it's about sourcing graduate opportunities, but it's also about looking to source opportunities that can help them build experiences to grow their skill set. So placements, volunteering, internships, community engagement, all of these things linking in together. Once we've done that, and Paul highlighted this as well, one of the key things that we want to support them with is how they can tell their story effectively, how they can articulate themselves through CVs, through application forms, so that they're actually telling the story of themselves in a way that directly connects with what you as employers want to know about themselves, okay? And it's helping them shift this mindset away from, my CV is not my life story, my CV is a targeted marketing document to telling an employer what they need to know about me to connect with the job description, with the person's specification that they're actually looking to recruit against. And then that develops further in relation to supporting them through interview technique, interview practice, making them aware of company assessment centres, the types of activities and exercises they'll be doing, how to prepare for, how to think their way through these kind of things, so that they actually have the best chance possible to impress you as employers, to make the most of their own skills, to demonstrate their own skills and capacities, so that you can actually recruit them, identify them, and recruit them into your organisation as graduate recruits. Next slide, please. Sorry, I need to take a sip of water there. How is that delivered? Well, it's delivered in a variety of ways across the university. We offer one-to-one individual sessions, and students and recent graduates of the university can have as many one-to-one sessions with a professionally qualified and experienced careers consultant to talk through their individual situation, their individual concerns, and develop an individual action plan for themselves. We also deliver directly onto just about every course in the university that has a bespoke careers input into their programme. On top of that, we also have general open access workshops and webinars that any student can sign up to and come along to hear information, get advice about a huge range of employability, career planning, job search, and applications types topics. One or two things I wanted to draw your particular attention to as to how we are upping our game to support our students and our recent graduates. One of the key things there that we've done, and we launched this over the summer to support our graduating students over the summer, was our RGU Employability Enhancement Award, which was an online program, a tailored structured program, taking them through a whole structured process of career planning, self-awareness, opportunity searching, CVs and everything like that, so that they could actually manage their own employability and work productively through this program and develop their skills, develop their understanding of themselves, of employers, of job search and application processes. Engagement in the award far outstripped our expectation, and we had significant numbers going through this award, and the feedback from the award was incredibly positive. And to reward them for participating in this award, we were offering university certificates that they could pin to their LinkedIn profile or other social media badges to demonstrate to employers, people like yourself, that they are interested, engaged, focused, developing their employability to make themselves as attractive as possible to meet your needs. We are supported in doing all of that through our EHub, which is our online careers information, advice and tools platform, which is full of self-help information, self-directed advice. They can follow individual programs on particular topics, or they can dip in and out of particular subject areas, topic areas, as and when they need to actually access that support. And it's designed as well to prepare students for our physical interaction with them, our one-to-one interactions or class interactions with them, but it's also about reinforcing those face-to-face interactions as well, whether it's one-to-one or class-based, so that the student and the graduate has preparation for a one-to-one session, the benefit from the value added of a discussion, a session with a careers consultant, and then they have reinforcing material available that they can go and explore further on the EHub. So next slide, please. And this is our EHub, and on our EHub, it has, as I say, because it's an electronic platform, it's 24/7 access, so students can have access to this information as and when they need it. It complements our face-to-face support, it reinforces our face-to-face support, and it's designed directly to support our students and graduates in developing their employability and understanding of graduate recruitment and selection processes around there. One of the key important points of the EHub is it also acts as a one-stop shop for our students for anything to do with employability, career planning, and opportunities, because our opportunities platform and our events platform are directly linked into the EHub, the EHub platform, so that it creates this kind of one-stop shop. If there is any point of concern in any student or graduate that they have about their employability, their career planning, whatever it happens to be, this one-stop shop will allow them access to the support and to the opportunities and vacancies and events that's going to help them move forward and grow in confidence and develop their employability. Okay. One of the key things about lifelong learning, which we are looking to capitalise on in the future, in the immediate future, is how it connects with our lifelong learning agenda. And within that kind of context, all our alumni, all our graduates have full access to our platform. So it enables our alumni to come back into the university, come back into the platform, and actually take opportunity, take learning programs, take learning pathways that's going to help and develop their CPD and develop their career advancement as well. Okay. In terms of employer buy-in for that, and I think this is quite an important and interesting point as well, it's perhaps a service that we can offer yourselves as employers, as recruiters. We can provide access to our eForm platform to areas such as our business skills area, where students, recent graduates, your recruits, can actually develop ideas around communication, team working skills, negotiation, critical business skills that perhaps they haven't had the full opportunity to practice as students. Okay. There's also a whole range of information and support in eHub around onboarding and how to make a positive impression as a fresh graduate recruit into an organisation, how to make the most of that opportunity and move forward. So definitely opportunities to connect with CPD and opportunities for yourselves as employers to potentially make much more of this opportunity to support you in onboarding and developing your fresh recruits into the organisation. Okay, next slide, please. We don't do this on our own. We can't deliver all of this on our own, and we wouldn't want to deliver all of this on our own. We deliver this in partnership with our key stakeholders. We have partnerships with students. We actively engage students in the design, the feedback, and the development of our services to make sure that what we are doing and how we're doing it matches their needs and their expectations. We also work in partnership with support departments. So, for example, we work with Widening Access here, who support students who are coming into the university from a much more diverse background, who may face different challenges in terms of personal confidence, understanding of the graduate labour market, broadening out their horizons as to what they might be capable of doing around those kind of areas. And we also work in partnership with our academics in terms of developing programmes, input courses that we can deliver directly into their academic courses. But of course, to focus on the purpose of today, one of our key stakeholders is actually yourselves, our partnership with employers. And what I think about partnership with employers from my role in terms of the careers team is about knowledge transfer. It's about working with yourselves, being able to tap into your understanding of how the market is changing for you, your sector, your organisation, how your recruitment practices are changing and developing and adapting to the changes in the market around you. Also in terms of thinking about helping you understand what a student or a recent graduate is actually going to be capable of delivering for you in an employed situation, so that there is a clear expectation of what is capable, what you should be expecting this graduate to do. And Rachel's going to come on and talk about the next 3 points in a little bit more detail. But I think the partnership with employers is also about supporting your graduate recruitment pipeline, making sure that the graduates that we're producing, the graduates that we're presenting to market are appropriately knowledge, they have the skills that you need to be effective in your workplace, that they're motivated, that they're engaged, they know who they are, they know what their skills and strengths are, so that they can hit the ground running and actually deliver and be impactful for you from very, very early on in their experience with yourselves. Okay. There's also the opportunity to contribute as an employer to our work with students directly by coming in and supporting events, by supporting workshops and presentations, and to offer opportunities, whether that's graduate opportunities, work experience, internships, and a wide range of other kind of opportunities, guest lecturing, etc., to present yourself directly to our student body as an employer of choice, as a recruiter of choice, who's genuinely interested in our students and wanting to help them move forward. Next slide, please. And I take this opportunity naturally to lead on to my colleague Rachel Pugh, who's going to talk about the Engaging Future Talent agenda.
Thanks, Will. Can I have the next slide, please? So now more than ever, hiring graduates and students makes business sense. COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact on the economy. Future Talent offers a fantastic opportunity not only to boost your headcount, but also do it at a great value for money. The World Bank forecast in June a 5.2% shrinkage in the world economy this year. And as Paul said, the area hardest hit is those aged 16 to 24. And this is a stark contrast to where we were sitting last year, where I was sitting nice and comfortably saying to Paul, we're going to have a 9.1% increase in the number of graduate opportunities. I wish I was saying the same this year. So what can we actually offer you? So the UK government started the initiative of Kickstart. So the Kickstarter scheme offers £1,500 for every young person you help train. So to meet this incentive from the government, you need to have a young person between the ages of 16 to 24 for a minimum of 6 months and 25 hours a week. The great news is all our course accredited placements, or the majority of them, do fit under this remit. So just by considering a placement, you could be £1,500 better off, never mind all the talent and skills a student or placement can bring to you. Looking ahead, we're going to have all these changing skill demands on every sector. As both Will and Paul alluded to, the fourth industrial revolution has very much been ushered in by COVID-19. I don't think anybody saw us working from home in this capacity as well as we have been doing before COVID hit, and it's been very much ushered in. So we now need those future talent now more than ever. For all those of you who are working in oil and gas, I know there's quite a few of you on the call today, 75% of all managers and leaders in the UK continental shelf are over the age of 40, and 40% of those are over the age of 50. So now you need to be thinking, when these group of people retire, how are we going to fill their gaps that they're inevitably going to lead? Your business will be looking at changing dynamics, changing your portfolio of investments. You need to look at the investment in the student population to bring that future talent through. So the Workforce Dynamics report, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, if not, it's a really good read, is predicted 4,500 new people will be employed in roles that currently don't exist by 2025. Now that isn't very far away, 5 years, and I don't think anybody can see what's going to come around the corner with COVID. So it is a very plausible and very viewable possibility now. And if you need even more reason other than just building and enhancing your own talent pool, graduates contribute approximately £1 billion to the UK economy in added value. That's an astonishing amount. Don't you think your company deserves a piece of that slice pie? Can I have the next slide, please? So what do future talent bring? So they bring a fresh perspective to your business. They bring a willingness to learn, great value, they're ambitious, self-aware, adaptive, they've got new knowledge, and as I said, it gives you the opportunity to grow your talent pipeline within. We work with industry to make sure that our students and our graduates are addressing the needs that you are telling us they need to address. Not just that, we are proud supporters of the CISA Award, and by showing our graduates, you are getting, in CISA's terminology, may I add, they are self-aware, adaptable, opportunity-aware, enthusiastic, dynamic, tech-savvy, communicative individuals ready to hit the ground running. And did I offer that the starting salary offers great value for money? Now, I've obviously sold you on the benefits of taking on a graduate or a young person with the government incentive and the cost of them. You're going to ask me, how do we engage with them in these uncertain times? Can I have the next slide, please? So these might be what you're thinking. Can I still work across the university courses in the new environment when we've all become so siloed? I'm a local employer or an SME. Do you have tailored approaches to suit my needs? Can I engage with your alumni community for experienced higher positions? And how do I maintain my management virtually? So for the top 3 questions, the answer is yes. We still can work across the university. Our platforms are open to all our students and all our alumni and our recent graduates. So we have a plethora of talent available for you. We have lots of support built into our recruitment process to help local and SMEs employers, including we're in development a virtual recruitment process where you can have a assessment centre tailored and designed to meet your company's needs. And as I said, all our alumni and our current student body are on the same platform, so you can engage and hire future talent as well as experienced hires all in one place. Can I have the next slide, please? So as Will said, the university has invested a lot of money on our platforms that we have available, both to students and employers. So as well as EHub, to complement that, we have EHub Jobs. So one of the best things you can do as an employer right now is make sure you've got a really great presence online. Now more than ever, it's important that you're shouting about what you're actually offering students, whether it's linking to a blog or in a webinar to give them tips and advice, or your job opportunities. You can advertise all that great work you're doing through EHub Jobs. It's a really interactive job board where you can share videos and pictures and get your culture across to our students in a way that's free of charge and is always present. So whether you've got an opportunity or not, you will still have a platform and a voice on our job board. We are running Spotlight on events, which is really your company's time to shine. So if you have come onto campus in the past and delivered presentations, we can do those in a virtual environment and when it feels comfortable for you. As Will said, you can help us run skill sessions and really drill down on the skills and competencies that you would like students to have. You can join us with one of our many careers fairs, or you can create an employer video. So if you're a bit like me and a bit camera shy, you can get somebody else to do a video and then upload it to the job board portal for them to view at any time. And as I've said, the work-based learning continues to be essential for building your talent pipeline. It's something that employers have done really well in the past, so please don't forget about it now. Bringing in a placement student and having them on rotation and building up their knowledge and confidence is really great, not just for them, but also for yourselves. And a lot of these placement students do go back to their host as graduates, and they're already trained and they can really personify hitting the ground running. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to finish with this thought. A new graduate can be the difference that makes a difference. Review your hiring strategy and extend it to include the bright new minds that can shape and create the future of your business. So thank you very much. The next slide, it's the end.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rachel, Will and Paul. That was a really interesting presentation, and I certainly learned lots from it myself. I do have some questions coming in, and please, anyone that's watching that wants to ask anything else, remember to use the Q&A function, and I will ask any of your questions to the panel. So just kind of to get us kicked off, you're talking about the importance of attracting future talent into the organisation, which is really key. But I guess it's quite challenging for companies at the moment. You know, if they bring in this future talent, how do they ensure that they will be able to retain them, given that like salaries are likely to be lower, as Paul mentioned, and it's probably quite difficult to be offering sort of financial incentives. Do you have any hints and tips of how to ensure that companies can retain their current talent or any future talent that they're bringing in? Does anyone want to volunteer? Or
I can volunteer.
Can I actually apologise, and I'll share this with the webinar audience, the perils of homeworking. I just got somebody at the door trying to sell me double glazing. So that's why I had to bail out. So I missed that question, but I'll go with the answers of my colleagues, then I'll work out a response.
Okay, well, sorry, I'll let you go, Rachel. Oh, you want me to speak? That's no problem. What I was going to say there is, yes, I totally accept Paul's point that starting salaries are definitely declining for graduate intake, and employers do have to think of other ways which they can add to the mix to remain loyalty and to attract the right talent. I think salary is always a bonus, but I don't think it is the key factor that a lot of employers think it is to attract people. I think an employer who is actually looking to invest in other ways in their graduate talent in terms of training, development, giving them a broad range experience, getting them involved in certain things, getting them involved in mentoring programs. And as long, I think, as the graduate recruit is actually seeing themselves grow and develop and acquiring new skills and being of use, being of value to the organisation, I think most graduates would be very supportive of that. And I think in the current situation, they are understanding themselves that their maybe financial return, at least immediately in terms of the market, is going to be suppressed a little bit. So I don't think it's going to come as a major shock to them. I don't know if Rachel or Paul has anything else you'd like to add to that.
Yes, this is actually quite a common myth that graduates really do lack loyalty. So in a recent study in 2018, it proved that graduates actually stay with a company for 4.2 years, and they're even more willing to stay when they see a clear graduate path out for them. So whether that's promotion or moving and learning new skills, like Will said, it's all about the culture that you have in your business and what you can value add, not just what the pay packet is at the end of the day. And I do think it is a myth that we need to debunk as much as we can. They might not stay as long as you hope for, but I think you do need to have those clear communication and messages to them, and have that positive back and forth between a line manager and your student graduate, so that you know what's in their mind, and they're more than willing to be open and honest with you. And as long as you're having that conversation, you can really prepare for that. But I think it is a big myth that they're not as loyal as people think a more senior hire would be.
And do you think that might also change? So you say about the 4.2 years, Rachel. Do you think that you might see people wanting to stay in jobs for longer, given what's gone on over the past year and the high number of people being made redundant? Do you think people will feel more loyal to employers and see the opportunity that, I don't know if you'd be seen as safer, because that's not necessarily true, but just if they've had a good experience over the last year, they're more likely to be loyal to their employer going forward?
Definitely, and this is, I actually had an interesting conversation about this with an employer just the other day, is the fact that will we be moving around as much in a wider sense of the word, because networking opportunities are a lot more recorded, and I think a lot more people won't be going out for coffees, or if you do, it'll be closely monitored by everybody. But I think loyalty is key in every job that you do, and the employer needs to be just as loyal as the graduate is to the student. But I think it's going to be a wait and see game. And 4.2 years to me, I've never stayed in a job that long, in all honesty. Paul's scratching his head. So that seems like a long time for me, and I would say that you'd be loyal if you were staying that long. But I do think you'll see it increase due to the uncertainty of the job market. You might not see as much fluidity happening.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything you want to add, Paul?
Yeah, I think a couple of points, as I mentioned earlier. Most of my career was oil and gas. So obviously for those who are on the call who have come from that sector or in that sector, there was a bit of chasing money. There's no denying that. And the oil companies were their own worst enemies. So certainly from a graduate, when I used to recruit graduates, it was, there's no denying money was a factor. No denying that at all. But I would take on board Rachel's point, if you can create the right culture, that would help to alleviate that problem. I think what has a couple of points I would add. I think you're right, Sarah. I think the last 7-8 months, I think how companies have treated people, and indeed, even if they've had to withdraw offers to graduates, how they've done that, I think that's will have a lasting effect, either negatively or positively. And I think if you go back to my presentation, I mentioned about like the shift in HR contracts as well. I think a lot of, dare I say, younger people, but certainly I think those coming out of uni either now or the last couple of years, I think we've always spoken about work-life balance being a real driver. I think the last 7-8 months have actually reinforced that. And I think companies who are more willing to look at a flexible type contract as opposed to purely money, I think they'll set themselves up into a stronger position.
Yeah, perfect. That's really interesting. Thank you. And anything else to add from Rachel or Will? Or move on to the next. Perfect. Thank you all. I've got a question here from Pauline, and she added it. This is why the question came in while you were talking, Will. So I'll maybe come to you first. But she does mention that the EHub is fab, and indeed much needed, which is great to hear. Thank you, Pauline. She's also asked, do you think there's a danger of students trying to do it all to show their strengths, and then leading to a burnout? And how do we ensure the balance for them?
Yeah, I think burnout is a real concern and stuff like that. But I think that comes down to career planning and education around there to get to equip people with the skills to actually recognise and balance out their professional career development, but also their personal well-being and these kind of things together. And I think career planning is more than just about, or effective career planning is more than just about actually finding out the best job. It's about also thinking about the work-life balance you want, the kind of lifestyle you want to lead, and not being afraid to actually articulate that to an employer. and be true to yourself as an employee, to say, for the best way for me to be able to contribute to this organization in this way is to work in this kind of way, to exhibit these kind of skills, and not to feel overly pressured or pressure themselves that they have to keep up with the rat race, to constantly enhance their skill set, to constantly do this. It's about, I think, negotiation and the balance between career development and personal well-being. I'm not sure if that's the kind of response you were looking for.
Thank you. Anything from Rachel or Paul?
Yeah, what I would say with that is, if we look at what Will and the team have adapted this summer, the Employability Enhancement Award, that was deliberately extended over 8 weeks, so it wasn't overly intensive, so the students could do that at their own pace. The other advantage, as Will referred to earlier about EHub, a lot of it is self-development and self-learning. And again, the student can do that at their own pace. It is 24/7 accessible, whether it's your laptop, your iPad, or indeed your phone now. So they've always got access to it. I think the other thing that's quite interesting about Burnout, and going back to a webinar I was on earlier this week, what a lot of companies are finding now is that students are applying en masse for jobs. So they're putting themselves under pressure because, dare I say, the market is so tight and so difficult. It's almost a scattergun approach. So employers are being inundated. Students are probably, in fact, not even probably, they're doing this en masse, putting themselves under pressure, applying for jobs that they might not even get past the first hurdle for. So I think from our perspective, and indeed the employer's perspective, the more help and guidance we can give to our graduates to let them hone in, and some of the points Will refer to in his presentation, that again would help things like burnout and putting too much pressure on themselves that Pauline was referring to.
That's probably quite a good point, Paul, because I know, even in sort of what you would call normal times, you could see a high number of applications coming in, and I know, personally from looking at applications for jobs, and you can see people that have just sent out to everyone. They've not taken the time to do the sort of the covering letter or to adapt their CV for the actual specific role, and they're just going to be dropped straight away, and that's such a waste of time and energy and effort. Whereas you'd probably be better focusing on a smaller number and really ensuring that what you're putting forward is what the job's actually looking for.
Well, Sarah, you can
Sarah,
cover.
sorry, Will. I think the other point about that is, and I get it, and if you look at some of the stats I referred to, I mean, the 83% of graduates feeling under pressure, but there's a lot, I mean, some of the stats are even more horrifying than that when you look at what they feel about their potential future. And that is adding to, dare I say, their anxiety and their concern when they are sending these things en masse. I totally understand it, I totally get it, but somehow between the employers and ourselves, we have to give the students, and they're not just only students, but alumni as well, more support and a bit more guidance and a bit more structure in relation to how they're following up these sort of approaches.
Anything you wanted to add, Will?
No, I was just going to quip, Sarah, that you're completely on message, and you can come and deliver one of my workshops at any point, because that's the key message that we're actually trying to get out to students, is that less is actually more, that a much more focused and targeted approach to job search, perhaps applying to less companies and less roles, but actually using the time that frees up to specifically target their applications to know the needs of that particular employer, and to reflect on, is this role actually really right for them? Does it allow them to exploit their strengths, their skills, capacities? Will it give them a sense of well-being and purpose when they actually are delivering that kind of role? So yeah, it's a key message that we're delivering to our students, is no scattergun approaches. How can the one CV in the middle say a positive thing to 30, 40, 100 employers out there? It's far better to be much more focused, much more tailored to your own needs, your own desires and ambitions, as long as you know how they're connected to yourself, and spend time tailoring and focusing that application so that it directly connects with the company and the job description that you're applying to.
Thank you. Anything from you, Rachel? Okay, thank you. So we've got a question here from Mark. He's saying on the EHub learning platform, how has this been enhanced to provide a better level of support to students compared to any e-learning platforms that were being used before COVID?
I'll probably jump in here as well. I don't think it does. I think the value added that EHub has provided for us when we invested in it is the way in which we responded to the COVID crisis in terms of being able to support our students online. A lot of our competitor institutions who don't have access to that same or similar type of technology had to really go back to square one and build up responses, build up programs, build up things that they could actually deliver. Whereas we had that already in place through the EHub platform. So we were looking at more, how could we repackage that? How can we make it more accessible to them? How can we market the effectiveness and how easy it is to engage with that platform so that we could make an instant response to the situation? I don't know if that helps.
Can I add something in? As well as all of what Will's just said, the other thing that we added, and really I felt added a lot of value to our students, is we ran live employer webinars. They were hosted and chaired by Will himself, and they were placed in key areas or key stages of the programme. So we hit the halfway point and the end, so we can actually get employers' views and employer feedback on these key skills and developments that the team had worked really hard putting together.
And I think that's really important as well, rather than it just being Will Ritchie, the kind of careers manny, who's kind of quite portly and quite middle-aged and stuff like that, to actually have those messages reinforced at events by our employer partners is adds significant value added to the process and to the messages that we're trying to deliver through our guidance and advice to our students.
Thanks, Will. Probably going off on a different sort of topic, but another question that's come through is ensuring having a diverse and inclusive workforce is a really important topic and talked about quite a lot at the moment. Have you got any hints and tips of how companies can do this? Have you seen any good practices that you could share with the audience?
I can kick off. I mean, I think some companies, and I did say to Sarah I wouldn't be controversial, so I'll watch what I say. You can see Sarah panicking at this point. No, on a serious note, I think what happens with a lot of these type of, dare I say, initiatives, I mean, people come up with fancy new titles and suddenly people are heading up a diversity department or diversity inclusion stuff. Now that's great, and it's, dare I say, it might give it a bit of momentum, but it's much more deep rooted than that. It's about how you're actually doing your business, picking up Rachel's point about culture, etc. So is everything related to from how you're perceived as an organisation, what your advertising is, what your sort of core mission is, your core values. So it's a lot wider, a lot deeper rooted than just having a head of diversity. So I apologise if anybody's on this call who is a head of diversity, but I'm sure they would agree with me. You have to make a lot of time, a lot of effort. Certainly university, what we try to do, anything that we promote, whether it is through EHub or whether it's other initiatives, we try to ensure that that is as wide and as engaging as possible. Will already said we work closely with the Students' Union. We have certain interventions dedicated and targeted towards our international students. We have certain interventions targeted to our female students, and the list goes on. So it really is, I think for me, as opposed to having a fancy, dare I say, mission statement, it is really about how you do things operationally, and it is about actions as opposed to words. Hopefully that wasn't too controversial, Sarah.
I can add in, you were asking for a few examples. The Employability Hub have some fantastic partners that do really great work on this diversity and inclusion topics. EY, Enterprise, I could go on and list a few of them, all are running workshops, and some of them are exclusive for RGU students on their diversity and inclusion plans, and these include having workshops and webinars ran by RGU alumni that have gone through the recruitment process, who can really help our students see what this company can offer. And like Paul said, it's really selling that wider package rather than just the one little snippet of information and saying that you're an inclusive employer. Is selling your culture and your company's core values.
Okay. Anything else from you, Will? Is that?
No, really, I would just emphasise and support what both Rachel and Paul had said, that it's actually actions and deeds that speak louder than words, and actually taking real steps to demonstrate through your operation and through how you're delivering these kind of agendas that it is meaningful to the actual organisation and that the organisation is serious around those kind of areas. And yes, we are happy to promote particular programme schemes that target particular groups and cohorts of students who may have additional needs to access the labour market. But we make sure that through our operation we are as inclusive as we possibly can be, to make sure our opportunities, our services, our products, our tools are open to every student that we actually deal with and welcome into the university.
Thanks, Will. I'm conscious of time, so probably this will be the last question. And any questions we've not answered, we will ensure to do that after the webinar. So a question from the audience. In my business, there's sometimes a need for specific short-term projects to address a new company challenge and find a solution to this. Is this type of project something that is of interest to RGU students?
That's three nodding heads there. I'll let Will and Rachel say, but I mean, for me, I've got for once, a very quick answer. Yes. I'll pass over to my colleague.
Do you want to go? I'll go. Yeah, they would be ideal opportunities, so we can either speak to us directly and we can come up with a tailored approach for your business. So whether that's making it a class project or a group project, using it to one of our Connect to Business, or even a short-term placement, the list is absolutely endless of what we can do with short-term projects and how we can really add value to your company with our students' ability and talent.
And it's not just adding value to the employer's project and stuff like that. The student themselves, or the group of students who are undertaking that project, it adds significant value to them and their growth and their development as well, to be able to have that kind of simulation almost of working and delivering a real life project, knowing that that project is actually potentially going to be implemented into an organisation, that the fruits of their labour is going to have an impact somewhere down the line. So the added value, the added impact of that to the student is equally as valuable as the impact of having new ideas, fresh perspectives on this project for the employer who's posing the short-term project.
Right, thanks, Will. And I know there's various ways that we can support in that way, across the university. So definitely, if it's something that you're interested in, just get in touch with any of us that have been on the webinar today. So thank you to everyone that's joined us today. I hope you found it as insightful as I certainly did. And thank you very much again to Paul, Rachel and Will for their excellent presentation and answering all the questions and not causing me too many panics, Paul. So we've got a number of knowledge bites for business are coming up in the next couple of months. So please make sure that you check the website and keep updated with those. You can also register to receive regular emails about different events that we've got coming up. As I mentioned before, the recording of today's webinar will be available on our website in next week at some point, and you'll get an email to let you know when that is. And finally, just to say that it's really important that our RGU Knowledge Bites for Business is meeting your needs and covering topics that are of interest to you at this time. So if there is anything that you would like us to talk about or share, please let us know and we'll include that in our future event schedule. So thank you once again and enjoy the rest of your day.